to get on your feet. It's about to go down. Come on, get on your feet. Here we go, y'all.
I'm chasing after you, no matter what I have to do, 'cause I need you more and more. Come on. I'm chasing after you, no matter what I have to do, 'cause I need you, Lord, more and more. Come on, sing it. I'm chasing after you, no matter what. God, I need you, yeah. Oh, chasing after you, no matter what. Oh, I need you, yeah.
Y'all sing.
Come on, sing it. Sing more and I'm chasing after you, no matter what. God, I need you, yeah. Come on, sing it. Chasing after you, no matter what. Oh, I need you, yeah. Oh, more and
Say it again.
Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody to the fellowship at home. And it is let me do this. All right. It is a great day to be alive. I often say any day above ground zero is a great day to be alive. I'm Bishop Craig Davis, host of the fellowship at home, along with Bishop Johnny Ray Withers.
Ray.
Welcome
What's up, Bishop?
everybody. I'm good. What about you?
Man, we will.
I see
Hanging
you
out.
you repping LA for sure.
Man, we got to do this. We got to do this, y'all.
Is there any specific reason why you repping?
Man, this is LA, y'all. I'm just saying, hey, everything LA, man. The Rams.
I feel
everything.
like Snoop Dogg should be in the background, Cal. Welcome, y'all. As you're coming in, I'm monitoring our Facebook and I'm trying to see who's coming in. If you all would share, if you would just drop your name and state, maybe region that you're from. We're going to have an in-depth conversation tonight with a man that knows what he's talking about in this area. If you came to Propel,
Wow.
one of the best panels that we
Yes.
had. I don't
Yeah.
know if he still loves me after that panel,
Love you,
but
Bishop. It's all good. We needed more time. We needed more time.
we needed more time. We needed more time. And if you don't know what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
that's okay. You needed to be there because we had an amazing time on the day. Listen, I need y'all to share on behalf of Bishop Walker and First Lady Walker. We welcome you and our founder, Bishop Paul Morton, and our co-founder and all of our council. Welcome everybody. We're excited about what's happening. We're excited about
Yes.
Propel. Hey, Bishop Withers, Propel was amazing.
It was amazing, Bishop. I mean, just the content, the experience itself, the worship, even the challenging moments, you know what I'm saying? Even as much as discussions and sometimes you have to be made to feel uncomfortable to actually make a change. And I think it was really healthy for us and what we experienced in Propel. It was great.
We congratulate Bishop Craig Oliver.
Yes.
Our
Second presiding designate.
Designate. Yeah. And then, of course, Bishop Brian Pierce, our third
presiding designate. Yes.
Yeah. And then our new executive secretary designate, William Murphy the third.
Yes.
And Bishop Love, the first assistant. And of course, we kind of forget Bishop Kelsey, who still remains our treasurer, but he works so hard.
Man,
And salute to those that have served, Bishop Brandon and Bishop Brister, as we are in, and to our presiding bishop who's getting ready to serve a third term.
third term, man.
We're excited. So let's get to the business at hand. Reverend Delman Coates, and I know he don't want me to read all this. I know, because I'd be like in the background when people be like,
Nah, man, don't go in all of that.
but he's a graduate of Morehouse, BA in religion, 1995. Harvard. Now we need to mention some of this.
Yeah, something got to be mentioned.
Harvard Divinity School, Master of Divinity, 1998. I didn't even know he was that old. I need to ask him off camera. Wow, is you near my age? And Columbia, he started young. Columbia University, Master, Jesus, of Philosophy, 2002. Wow. PhD in New Testament and Early Christianity. Wow. He has many published articles and pastors a great church, and on, an amazing church, and Coates ministry, messages, and social activism is where he shares in Full Gospel, spans a variety of media platforms. He has appeared and been profiled in national media such as MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, Essence, on and on and on. But watch this. Y'all ready? Now he's on the Fellowship at Home.
Oh, yes.
Glad to have you, sir. Glad to have you, sir.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Bishop Davis, Bishop Withers. Good to see you again. Both of you again. So delighted to be a part of Fellowship at Home tonight.
One thing about the internet, we could see 100 on here or whatever, but by the time we wake up in the morning, thousands can watch because it just goes on and on and on. So we welcome everybody in this conversation. So we are, as we talk tonight, 12 days, 11 days away. Yeah. And I'm gonna say, just like I said in the barbershop today, me and my barber both, we ready for it to be over. I'm ready for the commercials to be over.
Right.
I'm ready for I'm just ready for it all to be over.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm asleep, the night of. It's just it's so close until you just don't really know what's going to happen.
Right.
And you don't know if to believe the polls or not. We believed them 4 years ago and they were wrong.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about, before we get to the script. What are you sensing? You're out here, the pulse. Yeah. What are you sensing amongst the people? Because you have more of a pulse. I watch CNN. I talk to some people. Every now and then my dial slips to Fox, and I can't take but so much. But I think it's good that we look at all of it. What are you sensing?
Well, what I'm sensing is a shift away from partisanship and party to really thinking about what we value and share together as Americans. I mean, to see people who have identified as as Democrats, Independents, and Republicans coming together on national stages. Just think about what happened this week when John Kelly came out to talk about his experience with the former president. When you see instances like that, when you see Liz Cheney, when you see Dick Cheney and Bernie Sanders, coming together, that says a lot about people trying to look for a new common denominator, a search for common ground, like Howard Thurman talked about, in this sort of political space where people are trying to think about, what do we share in common? And I'm really excited about that and about the potential of that, because we are really in a moment that I think is supra partisan. This is really bigger than partisanship. This is because the choices today are not just between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. Right. It's about something decidedly different than that. It's about what's at stake for us to really be a constitutional democracy over and against tyranny and dictatorship. And what I'm excited about is seeing people as we get closer to November 5th, people really thinking about what's at stake that's bigger than partisanship.
Do you feel, Dr. Coates, that it's going to be something like what you just spoke of? Is going to be a continuum even after the election, or do you feel that it, based upon who sits in the seat, will actually dictate what happens as relates to this particular thought space that you're talking about?
It's going to have to be something that's sustainable, because if we
Yeah.
don't, we'll revert back. And I hope that the American people are learning the lessons of the past, that we can't just have historic elections and then rest on our laurels. I mean, think about how you felt in 2008 when the Obamas walked out on that platform in Chicago after that election, and to see that Black family. We thought we had arrived. There was no more racism. People were printing articles. We're in a post-racial society. And what happened? We just kind of all relaxed. We thought that there were no more struggles to be fought, no more rivers to be crossed, no more battles to be won. And so I am hopeful that and that was not too long ago, right? And I hope we will have learned the lessons of history, and that we will keep this momentum going. I'm hopeful that that'll be the case.
I'm hopeful with you, but
Yeah.
the stuff that I'm hearing is just it. Why do you think we believe a lie before we believe the truth? What is it that we don't research, we don't think it's as important? I mean, because you hear so many myths, you hear so many things that and I be scrolling because social media is my home because of what I do, but you know I be on all the blogs and I go in there, it just
Crazy.
up like
Right.
I can't just sit and it's not just young, it's not just the young generation, it's only like, I mean,
Yeah.
these myths and things. Why do you think?
Well, I think it's two things. First, it's the decentralization of media, which has happened over the last 20, 25 years. I mean, think about it, Bishop. We came up in a time where there were like 3 channels. They all went off at night at like 11 or 12 o'clock. I remember the static at 12 o'clock. And you had 3 channels, maybe 4. And we have just seen over the last generation, 25 to 30 years, the decentralization of media in both television and music and entertainment. So that now there really aren't any gatekeepers like there were in the past. There aren't the Barry Gordys, the Quincy Joneses, who are kind of the gatekeepers who could kind of do artist development. Now, anyone with a phone, a keyboard, can create a tune, a beat. It doesn't matter what's on that beat, on that tune. They can say anything that comes to their mind and put it out in the marketplace. And as long as there are people who will consume it, they'll digest it. And so I think the decentralization of content and media has democratized things in one way, which is a good thing. But I think the result of that is there's no more fact checking. There are no more editorial boards that sort of screen content in that way. And so I think some of what we're seeing is a function of that. And then I think the way in which technology has allowed us to have the repetition of a lie. When people hear a lie over and over and over and again, it becomes seared in their mind, sown in their spirit, and it just becomes, they just regurgitate those same things. So I think that the decentralization of media, with all of its positives, it comes with some challenges, and we're going to have more of that with this AI thing, because now computers can generate, I watch videos on social media and I have to ask, is this a real person or is that computer generated? Is that a real person I'm looking at? Is that their real voice? It sounds like Greg Davis, but is that really him?
Yeah.
And so I think we're living in that kind of environment where anyone can make content and we hear it over and over and over again.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, how do we what in your opinion is probably the most pressing issues for the average African American? What are you hearing that's pressing? I know they say the economy, I know they say abortion.
Sure.
You know, I know they say, hey, I just want to be able to afford my groceries. What do you know, we hear the media saying one thing, like we just said, but what are you sensing that's pressing?
I think most people today are concerned about affordability and the cost of living. I think the reality is, regardless of your race, religion, your gender, what you do, you are concerned about how to keep a roof over your head, clothes on your back, and food on your table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, as a result of that, I think in my mind, the most important pressing issue that links the American people is how do we distribute the $24 trillion of national wealth that's created every year? See, individuals don't have to create wealth. I see a lot of people on different platforms talk about, well, we need to create wealth. Well, as a nation, we create $24 trillion with a T every year in order for us to have commerce, in order for us to have an economy. The problem is 90+% of that $94 trillion is concentrated at the top in the
Wow.
financial sector, in the defense industry. And as a result, that leaves the masses of the people to fight amongst themselves over what's left over.
Yeah.
And when
Yeah.
I do trainings around the country, I do these illustrations around musical chairs. We've all played musical chairs. And what I do is, and I preached a sermon and done this demonstration, I put 10 chairs on a stage with 10 people. And I've asked them to walk around those chairs. And when the music stops, I say, whoever gets a chair, I'll give you $100. And so when 10 chairs for 10 people, when they walk around those chairs and stop, it's interesting. People are smiling, they're polite, they're helping one another. The younger people help the older ones get a seat. The men help the women, and everything is cool. And I give everyone $100. Then I ask them all to stand up, and I remove 4 chairs, and I
Mm.
ask them to do the same thing. Now it's 10 people walking around 6 chairs, and I tell them, when the music stops, whoever gets a chair, I'll give you $100. This time, the whole environment is different. It's the same people, same race, same God, same Bible, same church, but the entire dynamic is different.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
tension in the
Yeah.
air. There's suspicion amongst one another. And then when the music stops, the same people who helped the other before, the same young people who helped the elderly ones before, the same men who assisted the women before, they now create alliances to push those who they perceive to be weaker out so that
Yes.
they can get a seat. What
Wow.
happened? Did those people all of a sudden become mean, insensitive,
Yeah.
inconsiderate? No. They were forced to figure out how to survive in a context predicated on insufficient resources or chairs. And so, what we have in our world today is an economy in which we have the nation's GDP or wealth or money or resources that we create as a nation every year concentrated at the top. And for the top 1% of the people, the top 1%, then 5%, and 10, and then the masses of the people are forced to figure out how to pay for medication, pay for tuition, pay for health care, keep food on the table, rent, gas in the car. And
Mm.
we're all like in that game of musical chairs fighting against one another. And here's what I want to say. When you look historically, whenever societies were predicated on economics of scarcity, that those in leadership develop discourses of difference and domination to determine who would get the chairs, who would get the resource, and who would not. Would it be
Mm.
based upon a tribe that had a different practice? Would it be based on religion, a gender, a God that different people worshiped? That would become the basis for determining whose cattle would get access to the stream of water and things of that nature. So what we're seeing today is a fundamental symptom of the problem of scarcity. And here's the thing about it. It's really unnecessary,
Wow.
because one of the things that is not scarce in our society is the capacity of the federal government to create money for the things that the people need. Like we just saw this In the pandemic,
Made it.
in response to a national crisis, some kind of way, $5 trillion, y'all have to pardon me because I get passionate about this.
I hear your passion. I love it though. Keep
$5
going.
trillion just fell out the sky in a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
We didn't get letters in the mail saying your percentage of the $5 trillion is this. We weren't taxed for it. The federal government responsibly created the money for the things that we need to respond to that crisis. And we do those same monetary mechanisms whenever there's a nice national crisis. If we go to war, you can best believe, if we go to war tomorrow, there's going to be no member of Congress talking about the federal debt and the deficit. Why? Because the federal debt and the deficit is really not a burden on the federal government, because the federal government's budget does not work like a household. See, when we have bills to pay, we got to go get the money to pay those bills. But the federal government, we teach when you study modern monetary theory, the federal government is not a currency user like we are, like the state of California is, like a church or a nonprofit. The federal government is the currency issuer. It creates money for the things that we need, and it can responsibly create all of the money that we need without triggering the threshold, the target of inflation, for healthcare, great schools in every community, quality jobs with a decent pay for every American. There is no challenge that we cannot rise to the occasion to address, as long as we commit ourselves to distributing the $24 trillion in national wealth that we all create as a nation every year.
Just know, if you turn on Bishop Withers' stream Sunday, he's going to have 10 chairs in the pulpit. He's going to take that.
I'm taking that.
He's going to fit it into his sermon.
I'm going to make that work, man.
Do it.
Pastor in Compton. I know
I
exactly
can
what
see
you're
it.
talking
No,
about.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see the panic because you got more people and less supply.
Yeah. And so what's happening is one of the discourses of differences that emerge in scarcity. What are we seeing? Racism.
Yeah.
Sexism. Right? So that in the old world, the only people who get access to the chairs or resources were white Anglo-Saxon Protestant males. Women, people of color, no. So all of these discourses of difference and domination emerge to determine access to the resources. And if you get caught up in the discourses of difference and domination, you'll miss the broader macroeconomic reality that's really behind all of that. And one of the things I think we're facing today is an environment in which we're continuing to be divided. We're continuing to be gaslit. We're continuing to be distracted from the reality that what we need are more chairs.
Yeah.
Changing the race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation of the 6 people who get a chair does not address the fact that there's 4 people who do not. So
especially when you can make the chairs.
We can diversify. You can diversify the pool of people who get a chair, but I'm interested in the fact that we serve a God of abundance, a God of sufficiency. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. There's no reason we cannot create responsibly jobs for everyone so that whites don't have to fear Black and brown people entering the labor market with this whole made up fear around immigrants. And so we have to understand that we're being distracted from the broader substantive people that people care about when they think about politics, because the role of politics is for the government to provide for its citizenry. That's the fundamental role of the state, for the government to harness its national productivity, which is the money, the resources, for the benefit of the citizenry. See, the citizenry, we created that $24 trillion. The government is not that entity over there. It's not that thing over there. The federal government, through the appropriations process and the Treasury and the federal, creates the public resource. So we just need more distribution of that so that we aren't sitting around here fighting amongst ourselves, black versus white, men versus women, conservatives versus liberal. Like, look, the reality is we all can have a place at the Lord's table.
Well, and Bishop Withers, you can take it after this question, but
Okay.
I want to go right to, because you reference something and it stem. So, what do you say recently has gone viral, as early as 2 days ago? I think the son of Jimmy Swaggart, Donnie Swaggart.
Yeah.
Let me also give some. I lived in Louisiana for a while, and we would go to Baton Rouge to shop, and Jimmy Swaggart probably had in the day back in the day, his church was built on the backs of many African Americans. All you have to do is look at some of his old footage. Um, Donnie talked to the black church, actually rebuked us. Um, what is your response? I wish we could play it. But he was rebuking the black church, and you can go more into some things that he said, but what is your response, and what should our response be to Donnie Swaggart as he rebukes white Pentecostal, rebukes the black church?
And adding in that, like, what is the response of even a pastor coming to the pulpit on this upcoming week? How do you, yeah.
Well, I want to encourage your listeners to find that viral clip and perhaps take some time to listen to some recent sermons of Donnie Swaggart. In September, he had a sermon where he talks about their president of faith. Well, anyway, when you listen to that viral clip, underneath it is the notion that God, spirituality, and the Word of God is about the policing of personal and private morality issues. He talks about the black church supporting her. A support for her is a support for a party that's against God and the Word of God. He talks about that. It's a support of sexuality, homosexuality, I think he says, lesbianism, transgenderism. And there has been this scandal that's been committed in America, Bishop Davis. You start off talking about myths. How do these myths circulate? The biggest myth in America is that religion is about, and faith and spirituality is about patrolling matters of personal piety. Think about this. Churches and religions that supported the transatlantic slave trade. If you go to Ghana, there'll be a Christian church at the top of the slave castle, and underneath it are slave dungeons.
Jesus.
And when they Christianized slaves, Africans brought here to America and enslaved them, the scandal of white Christianity is that as long as we Christianize these black people, what we do with their bodies does not matter. We can deny them food, we can deny them shelter, we can deny their basic humanity as long as we baptize them and send their souls to heaven. It is the biggest fundamental myth and scandal of Western religion that that salvation in the Bible is fundamentally about your individual soul salvation. And I want to suggest that when you study the best of research, scholarship of the Hebrew Bible, or Old Testament and the New Testament, salvation, spirituality, faith in God is decidedly connected with what is happening in the material world. It is why we have a cross. The cross is not just the cross. Jesus was not just hung on a vertical axis that's about our connection to the divine. There's also a horizontal axis, which is about our connection with one another, which is why Jesus said, if you were, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was homeless, you gave me shelter. When I was naked, you gave me clothing. Because Jesus, rooted in the biblical tradition of the prophets, understood that salvation, tikkun olam in Hebrew, was fundamentally about how we live in the world. So
Yeah.
God is not in heaven. And so this idea, if we come up in the church, that God is in heaven with a clipboard monitoring where you put your genitalia and who you do it with and how often, all of this stuff, and ignoring the material needs of God's children is a fundamental mythology of slave religion. It is the greatest scandal of white American Christianity that has endured for 400 years and continues to this day. And as Dr. Freddie Haynes said at our church last night, if any of you saw his viral response to Donnie Swaggart, the whole existence of the Black church is because Black people were not welcome in the white church. And so who he needs to be talking to are white Christians who can organize around their fake, contrived campaign around abortion, which in 1971 and 1974, the Southern Baptist Convention, the largest organization of white conservatives in the country, reaffirmed their support of a woman's right to bodily autonomy. But what happened a few years later is the IRS passed a rule that said if you want to get tax exempt status, you cannot deny admission to Black people. And there were two schools that wanted to continue to deny admission to Black people. Liberty University,
Wow.
run by Jerry Falwell at the time, and Bob Jones University. And conservatives, led by a man named Paul Weyrich, figured out that the way to get white evangelicals politically involved was racism. And you can look at the work of Dr. Randall Balmer, who talks about the origins of evangelicalism in America, what got them politically active after going centuries of not being involved. Because think about this, white evangelicals didn't believe in getting involved in politics. They believe Jesus is coming back at any time, so we just need to be out in the fields praying because Jesus is coming back anytime. Conservatives who wanted to reverse the advances of the civil rights movement saw white evangelicals as a political voting bloc, and they tried for decades to try to figure out what can we do to get this voting bloc active, and they found it: segregation, racism.
Mm-hmm.
They use abortion as a ruse, as a guise. They use their supposed, righteous, sanctimonious, indignation about issues like divorce and abortion and God, gays, and guns, right? When they really don't care about any of that. They really care about those chairs I was talking about.
Right.
That's
Right.
what they really care about. They want to make sure that their kids and their grandchildren maintain access to the chairs and not ours.
Right.
And they use religion. And we have to be sensitive and aware, and pastors need to be educated and deconstruct the slave master's theology so that we don't further reinscribe the discourses that cause us to be in bondage today.
Boom. Jesus. Dr. Coates, man,
Yes, sir.
that's phenomenal. Now, based upon that position that you know that the evangelicals have taken, we have to ourselves navigate within this moment of diversity within the African American community, and even as much as the African American pulpit, where we have both conservative as well as liberals. And then we do have some of those African American conservatives that are still trying to also be one who are pushing that particular agenda as well. How then do we navigate that? How do we address that? How do we give an answer to, or even as much as even manage that in light of what you just stated?
I know there are a lot of people in our community who feel like there's no home for them in either of these parties.
Yeah.
But we have to keep in mind that this is a symptom of the political system in America, and is not a function of what's going on in the family. So what
Mm.
I try to do is try to remind brothers that we're in a family here. And I invite people to think about the family reunion, the family cookout. Man, y'all know how it is at the family reunion or the cookout out at the park. You know, our family meets in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it's literally hundreds of people out there or down in South Carolina and Florence, Lake City, South Carolina. When you're out there, it's all kind of family members there because, you know, I got cousins and uncles on the fringes with hanging out of their car with bottles and paper bags. We got aunties, you know, asking who made the potato salad.
Yeah.
We got other aunties trying to make sure everybody comes to church tomorrow. The kids are running around. We got some kids, you know, who know Chinese and other kids who's struggling with English. But we got some family members, you know, who are, you know, lawyers and doctors and
Yeah.
others who sell pharmaceuticals on the street. But
Yes,
at
sir.
the end of the day, they all in the family.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to make sure that we don't let these discourses of difference and
Mm.
domination, which are
Yes.
designed to divide the
Mm-hmm.
people,
Mm-hmm.
divide us.
Mm-hmm.
We got to realize that this thing is not about, you know, whether you think women should preach and whether I think women should preach. This is not about, you know, there could be a range of discourses and domination. You know, what do you think about LGBTQ? And we can talk about that. And I can, or, you know, and allow these discourses to divide us. At the end of the day, I want you, my brother, to have some of this pig that's over there that they turning around, right? I want you to have some of this salad, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. I want you to be able to eat. If you
Right.
get sick, I want you to be able to get medical attention.
Get healed. Right, man.
Yeah,
Come
you
on.
know, if you need to take a shower or have water and you live in Mississippi or Flint, Michigan, I want your water to not have lead in it.
Yes, sir.
So, man, look, man, we at the family reunion, and it's gonna be some Knicks fans there, and it's gonna be some Laker fans there, and everything in between. But we're all still family.
Yeah.
That's why personally I love the name Bishop Davis of what you fellowship. It's about
Mm.
fellowship. Fellowship is fundamentally rooted in family. So let's not let, you know, when you look at what's behind, what's funding a lot of these major groups that come out, it's white money funding it. Many of these these black platforms that are advancing a certain kind of, you know, all the black people, they always vote for Democrats, and black people always get behind the lip. There are institutions behind that funding the division. And we've got, and regardless of your political orientation, it's big. That's why I opened saying this movement has got to understand that we are transcending partisanship.
Yeah.
The issues that are at stake are not about your party or your doctrine. It's about everybody deserves to be able to eat. Muslim, non-Muslim, Christian, non-Christian, atheist, whatever. And that's what we want. That's what we ought to desire. And so for me, that's how I would appeal to all of our people to think about what we do when we go to that family reunion, bro. And it's a
Yeah.
lot of diversity there,
Yeah.
but yet they all in the family.
Do you feel that sexism is playing a part in this situation too as well?
No doubt about it. Sexism is one of the discourses of difference and domination that I've been talking about. What people need to understand is that the architects of Project 2025 have a very disturbing theology
Yeah.
that wants to put women out of the public square, does not want them to work. I forget the names of the particular groups that designed it and developed it, but it's
Yeah.
very disturbing, the think tanks that have been producing this and what's behind it. Why are they doing that? Because white Anglo-Saxon male Protestants still want access to the few chairs. So if you take women out of the mix, you take people of color out of the mix, they can have the chairs for their children and grandchildren.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's what I've been trying to help people to understand. So sexism is a part of this discourse to divide people.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's in the statistics from the polls. They're saying that the election is going to be divided pretty much who gets out the most vote, men or women. I mean, the
Right.
men are for Trump and the women are Kamala. And it's right down the line. And
Yeah.
it's who gets out the most to vote.
Right.
So it's proving what you're saying. So are we not ready? Let's just take out her and who we might be bagging or whatever. Are we not ready for women to stand in the public square? You mentioned that,
Yeah.
but Hillary tried. She
Yeah.
put some cracks there,
Sure.
but now we got a double whammy.
Yeah.
Now again, we're not endorsing anybody on this program, but
Yeah.
you got a black woman
Yeah.
or mixed woman.
Yeah.
You got a double whammy where it was just enough for Hillary to be a woman, but
Woman.
now you got sexism and racism playing. Can you imagine the conversations that are going on, in the workout, in the steam rooms and all that, a black woman,
Right.
it's a double whammy.
I think we are ready, Bishop. And I think if there's any group of people that ought to be championing that message, again, in a nonpartisan way, just about the prospect of God using women, it ought to be Black preachers in the
Oh,
Black
man.
church.
Yes,
The
sir.
first preachers of the gospel were women. What is the gospel? The gospel is the good news that he's not dead, he's alive. And the first communicators of that message were women.
Hmm.
And so if there's anyone that needs to be on the side of of acknowledging what women have always been done. Look, the reality is that every discourse presumes the existence of the opposite, right? When you study what's called rhetorical criticism. So you don't have to have patriarchy or a discourse that says women should be silent if they were already silent. You don't need a discourse that has to suppress women if they weren't already suppressed. You don't have to go through all of this work. So the reality is when you study history, women's history, women have all in every race, every culture have always been present, visible, and vocal. It has only been in this Western Eurocentric, modern Western Eurocentric version of history where the patriarchal model has been dominant. And so I would say we're ready because, I mean, think about it. We have Margaret Thatcher in the UK. When was that? In the 80s. We have now Black women presidents in certain countries in Africa. So why can't we have it here? And if there's anyone that ought to be a champion of that voice, it should be the Black church. I said last week at Propel that historians, when you study historians like Gaylord Wilmore, C. Eric Lincoln, Albert J. Raboteau, all of the historians of the Black church, Black religion, Black radicalism, I say oftentimes that people need to understand that the term Black church is a historiographic creation. It's a specific term that scholars are using to refer to that subset of Black Christianity that was on the side of the fight for freedom, justice, and equality. So with that in mind, it's important to understand, I say this all the time, there's a difference between the Black church and a church of Blacks. Because every church of Blacks was not in the freedom fighting tradition. So if you call yourself a pastor, a church in the Black church tradition, then you have to be thinking about the power of God. I mean, that's fundamentally what Pentecost was about. It was about the power of God empowering groups. Think all of the followers of Jesus were Galilean Jews who only spoke Aramaic. Pentecost was about the power of the Holy Ghost, empowering the believers to speak in languages that people outside of the church could understand. It was an empowerment not just spiritual empowerment, socially, politically empowering movement. And if anyone needs to be on the side of saying, yes, a woman can be president. Yes, a woman of color can be president. I would hope it would be the Black church and the Black preacher.
You know, Dr. Coates, man, I love your passion. I love all the way you're saying. If you had the opportunity, right, and you had the opportunity to sit with both nominees, and to see you was the one who was moderating a debate, what would you say to either of them? You know what I'm saying? What would be some of your statements that you would make to them?
Yeah.
Lord have mercy.
I would say that there's one issue with all of our diversity as a nation that really links us.
Okay.
And that's our need to feed our families. And right now, the way we do public policy structurally engineers unemployment in America so that people cannot do that. Now, what do you mean by that? Well, policymakers pursue an objective that's called maximum employment.
Yeah.
What that means is they control how many people can work and how many people cannot work. You might think, oh, I can just go out and get a job. No. It doesn't work like that. You think that. That's a microeconomic perspective. From a macroeconomic perspective, policymakers are sitting in a lab and they determine how many people are going to be able to take care of their families. And the goal is maximum employment. So what ends up happening, if you listen to the news or the financial news, whenever the unemployment rate starts to dip around like 3%, below 4%, certainly, you'll hear them start saying things like, the economy is too hot. We need to cool it off. Because think about it. If unemployment is going down, why not let it go down to zero? Why not let everybody get a job, a good job? When it starts to get around below 4%, they start getting worried and they start pursuing and they start implementing what's called the Phillips curve. Or another principle is called the NARU, the natural accelerating rate of unemployment. So what they do is they start using tools that are going to make more people unemployed. And the main tool that they have is raising interest rates. Y'all remember 2 years ago, people were like, oh my God, interest rates are like 2%, 2.5%. I can get a mortgage for 2.5%, 3%. And then what happened? Like all of a sudden it was up to 6.5% and 7%. Well, why did they do that? The goal was to cool off the economy. And cooling off the economy and making it not be so hot means make more people unemployed.
Jesus.
Because it's based on this notion that if too many people have a job, that will cause or trigger inflation. I don't want to go into that here. So the way to prevent people from having money is to make more people unemployed. So what I would say is, if I was looking at the two major candidates today, and there are many candidates, I would say, are you committed to having a full employment economy? It is the unfinished work of the civil rights movement. It was a part of the plan of FDR to make sure that we harness the national spending power to distribute the wealth. So everybody can get a job. This is not about a handout. It's about saying everyone who wants to work in America, since we're the richest country in the world, should be able to get a decent job at a livable wage with benefits. And they talked about the right to a dignified job, a federal job guarantee. And the nation's first Black economist, not first Black woman economist, the first Black economist was a Black woman named Sadie Alexander. She was the first national president of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated in the 40s. And Dr. Sadie Alexander pushed a program called a federal job guarantee. And she said that if we want to address the race problem in America, we've got to put more chairs on the stage when it comes to jobs. Because as long as white males fear that women, Black people, and brown people threaten their access to those chairs, they're going to be out in the woods with hoods on, burning
Right.
crosses, because that's all about their fear of not
Yeah.
being able to keep a roof over their head. So it makes it less necessary for us to push and shove over a chair if everyone just has a chair. And what's at the root of the history of tensions between people? You can go to East Africa now, and there are groups, tribes of people who lived in peace. But if a drought comes and the river dries up, the same tribes of people who were basically the same kinfolk start developing discourses of difference to decide whose cattle, remaining cattle, gonna get access to this little small stream of water. So I would say, are you committed to full employment? Are you committed to continuing the work of Dr. King? Because the title of the March on Washington, Bishop Davis, was the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. It wasn't just the March on Washington. The full title was the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. And if you listen to the recording of the March on Washington, at the very end, the organizer of the March on Washington, Bayard Rustin, gets up and he reads the list of the 10 demands. Most people don't even know about the 10 demands of the March on Washington. One of the 10 demands was the right to a job, a dignified job, a federal job guarantee. Remember those signs? One man, one job, or something like that? It was about putting more chairs on the stage. And if we do that, Black people and white people don't have to be fighting with each other. You know, Black and brown, it don't have to be all of this tension, men and women. And so I would say, are you committed? And if we do that, we can have roads, infrastructure, great schools, healthcare for everybody. We can reduce crime in cities. What people need in Compton, Bishop Withers,
Yes.
is
Yes,
not
sir.
more police. The brothers need a job.
That's what they
When
need.
people have a job, like a job that they can, take care of their kids, they're not out there gang
Attention, that
banging.
stress is gone. Exactly.
Yeah, they're not out there gang banging. They can keep their
Mhm.
families together, their marriages
Yeah.
together. They're not out generally, get involved in addiction and stuff. Federal job guarantee. It is critical. It is the one policy priority that I believe links all people, regardless of their race, religion, background, country of origin. And we need to start building solidarity around what unites us rather than what divides us.
Let me ask you the last question, as you are the special assistant to our presiding bishop for government affairs, and I see why. You
Amazing.
Yeah, it's just so much.
Wealth of knowledge.
We need to build another tabernacle here and just stay here.
I'd love to anytime.
What should the next? We got 2 more Sundays. It's amazing to me that we're here. What should the church be doing for the next week and a half, the remaining days? What can we do to make sure we get, coin phrase, souls to the polls?
Yeah.
To make sure whoever you stand for, that it happens. What can we do? Give us direction.
I think everyone listening to me tonight can get a copy of Full Gospel Votes. It is the fellowship's toolkit to help mobilize, organize, educate, and inform those in the fellowship, pastors, bishops, leaders, and lay people, around what's at stake and where we stand. It's an interactive tool to help people to understand what's at stake in your district, in your community. If you don't have it, I'm sorry, I didn't come prepared to direct where people can access that. I'm sure they can send an email to the fellowship. We have distributed it before. We can do it again. Bishop Lisa Weah, Bishop Dwayne Debnam, Bishop Juwan Hilton and I, we have been working on this and we have put that out. I encourage everyone to get that toolkit and start to educate your people about what is at stake. Because, Bishop, we've talked about like national stuff, but there's a lot of stuff at stake in local communities as well, like in states and counties and cities. And so people can't stay at home. Not voting is a vote. It's a
vote.
vote, right? Like there are judicial seats that are at stake, funding for your local schools. Um, the headquarters says it's on the main website,
On the
Full
way, see,
Gospel
it is on the
Policy
main.
Agenda. Yeah, that's the policy agenda, but I'm referring
But the
now to
toolkit.
the Get Out to Vote, the Get Out the Vote toolkit called Full Gospel Votes. I'll make sure we reach out to Bishop Poole and try to get that circulated again out to the fellowship. We did an email a month or so ago, but go to that toolkit because sometimes people don't see the connection. They think it's just about, what's happening in the Holy Land, Ukraine. No, man, there are issues at stake in your county, in your city that we need to educate people about. And pastors need to play a role in that. After our services this Sunday, after both services, we're going to the polls. We're doing souls to the polls. I'm going to get in cars. We're going to just go down there and invite people in different counties and jurisdictions around our area with leaders to get out the vote. We've got to do that. I mean, this thing is going to be a razor thin issue
Yes,
from what
sir.
they're saying right now. And so every vote counts, every voice counts, and we need people to exercise their right to vote.
It's who gets out the most votes. It's who gets out their people. That's really what it's going to come to.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Coates. I appreciate you. And just tell people where they can get in touch with you at.
Hey, I pastor Mount Enon Baptist Church in Clinton, Maryland. MountEnon.org is our church website. I'm on social media, Instagram, Facebook. I am Delman Coates. My personal website and ministry is delmancoates.org. Sermons, daily devotionals, sermon notes. We also have an economic policy campaign called the Our Money Campaign, which educates thought leaders, influencers, and the public about monetary and fiscal policy. So many awesome educational resources on there. The website is ourmoneyus.org. I go around the country training leaders, faith leaders, civil rights leaders, activists, organizers around how does fiscal policy work and how can we harness that to distribute the resources that are available to us today. That's how folks can follow me.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. And make sure everybody, you follow the Full Gospel Facebook page you're on. Also our Instagram. Also, we have a TikTok page, y'all. Make sure you look for Full Gospel. We also would like for you to like and share this no matter what time of the night that you're watching this. And then, of course, our YouTube page. Again, thank you, Dr. Coates. Thank you, Bishop Withers, for being a great co-host. And then Christopher, Overseer Christopher Harris in the background producing all this for us, headquarters. Thank you so much. And to our social media team, Shonda and everybody, thank you all so much. We'll see you next week for the conclusion of the matter right before the big vote. Yeah. Make sure in some states, I don't know if it's everywhere, you can still register to vote. You can register, just go there and then vote.
Make sure you check your status too, see where you are.
Check your status and see where you are. Whatever you do, I'm imploring, I'm begging you, please get to the poll. Take your mama, your grandmama, take everybody. Yeah. Take your cousin. If you see somebody need a ride, take them. Yeah. All right. Thank y'all so much. Love y'all.
Love y'all.
We out.
Peace.
Overseer.